Hello and good morning, everybody. I'm sorry that we're going to power straight on from that brilliant opening session, and it's been fantastic to hear about those amazing projects. And I think for me, and hopefully for all of us, it's an important reminder about how what we do, no matter how we do it and where we're doing it, in our orchestras or in these brilliant sort of projects, all of our work in one way or another can be transformational and hopefully not just transactional. So it's wonderful to be in Madrid with you and to be able to join you for this conference. The fact that I'm here in person and not in a square on the screen is both a slight irony, but also a joy and important point that we're discussing, that cultural exchange, that being together in a room must continue. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Tim Davy. I'm Tours and Projects Manager at the London Symphony Orchestra. I'm part of the touring team at the LSO, and we have the pleasure to be able to travel the world with the orchestra, meeting and working with great partners, performing for wonderful audiences in amazing concert halls, and enjoying all the cultural and often culinary benefits that come with travel. Travel for the London Symphony Orchestra has always been important. Since its beginnings in 1904, we've always sought to travel and share our music making, not just our music, with audiences far and wide. Within 2 years of its founding, the LSO travelled to Paris, and in 1912, the LSO was the first European orchestra to cross the Atlantic to America. And we'll always be glad that a change of booking and a change of schedule meant we didn't end up on a lovely new ship called the Titanic. Of course, a lot has changed since those first international trips, but not our spirit and our mission to share great music. And Spain has always been a hugely important part and a much-loved destination for us over the years. Thanks to the incredible work and dedication of Alfonso and the whole Ibermusica team, now brilliantly led by Llorenz. However, we now find ourselves discussing sustainability issues, both environmentally, but also player and staff mental health, family impact and well-being, as well as facing up to the challenges, and dare I say the opportunities, of Brexit, the pandemic, and digital. In the 1920 season, the LSO were due to perform 40 concerts around the world, including trips to the USA and Oman, plus 2 operas in Aix-en-Provence. This would have been around 80 days on tour that season, and that actually would have been a pretty standard touring season for the LSO. This was a huge amount of touring each year, an important part of our income model, but also very demanding both on operational and human resources. We were already working on how we could be more sustainable in our touring. For example, increasing the use of trains or coaches for intercity journeys or short-haul flights, instead of short-haul flights. Or looking at hotel selection to avoid needing coaches for short transfers within cities. But let's face it, those are small steps, and fundamentally we knew that the biggest impact would come from sensible tour routing planning and reducing the amount of touring, and especially the number of flights we took, both long and short haul. Now, that's very easy for me to stand here and say, but how can we make this huge shift in our business model? The pandemic presented us, like all of you, with huge challenges. It has been a tough period for everyone. We have seen musicians face an identity crisis, wondering whether they are essential as those workers providing services such as rubbish collection or food delivery become key workers. They feel dispensable. LSO musicians are not on a salary, but they have a membership appointment. So our immediate priority when the first wave of the pandemic and the first lockdown hit was to sustain an income for our musicians, but also to retain our staff expertise, keep the LSO financially viable, and importantly, maintain a dynamic contact with our audiences and partners. Those 4 clear aims drove the LSO through the first lockdown and our initial return to work, and remain central as we recover. The challenges are huge and well known to each of us, and there may well be bumps still to come in the road to recovery. But today I want to look to the future and focus on the positive outcomes. So some of the positive outcomes as a result of the pandemic include significant progress in our digital strategy, investment into LSO St Luke's, this beautiful converted church that you see here, investment into that as a digital studio with support from Yamaha, even stronger links between people across the company, between musicians and staff, and across departments as we all pulled together behind those 4 clear aims. And a focus on players as presenters, engaging directly with our community, highlighting the importance and strength of those personal connections. And flexible working becoming the norm, with staff adjusting roles and project teams being formed to deliver creative work, collaboratively and cross-departmentally. Programme diversity, both in terms of repertoire, young composers, new and different conductors, including the creation of a cover conductor scheme. And even closer working with our government and Association of British Orchestras and our friends and colleagues across the industry. New opportunities and strong partnerships. For example, our first project back after the first lockdown lifted was to live stream onto the streets of Aix-en-Provence, where we should have been in residence that summer for the festival. Very quickly, we realised that it was possible to sustain relationships and presence internationally through a digital medium. And we've now done so in Japan, America, and Chile. And a reminder that whilst we can all enjoy performances from the comfort of our home, there's really nothing like hearing a symphony orchestra perform live. The massive interruption of the pandemic prompted us to undertake a strategic review across the whole company and to square up to issues we've been considering for years, not least the international touring pattern. So, for example, rethinking the international touring pattern into something more sustainable, both for people and the planet, avoiding short trips if possible. 1 long-haul tour each year or season and 2 major European tours would be a lot more sustainable than our previous touring schedules. Creating UK residencies relationships, supported by Digital Discovery, our learning and engagement team. And developing a hybrid residency model with live and digital activity specially curated for partners in each major territory with in-depth relationships in key places where education and community work can be an integral part of the plan. More on that in a minute, but let's face it, even without the pandemic, touring was becoming harder. Brexit. Couldn't get away from it, and it presented us with numerous challenges. I have here my passport and a fine collection of stamps I've already accrued in the last couple of months. I still have to consciously think to go in the non-EU lane at passport control. My heart sinks a little bit each time. To go and get my stamp in my passport. These border crossings are taking longer, and we're having to answer with slight trepidation questions about why we're coming into the country, where we're staying, who's paying the bills. Thankfully, we've not had any issues so far. But actually, I remember a trip to Spain a few years ago where an American member of the orchestra was delayed at passport control for a few hours because of queues in the non-EU lane. And I worry about experiencing that with a full orchestra when, as we all know, we operate on a just-in-time model. The reason we have to get stamps in our passport now is because we have to abide by the 90 days and 180-day rule for travelling within the Schengen area, whether for business, work or pleasure. Now, whilst this won't be an issue for the LSO's schedule or most orchestral players, I expect it might be for busy international artists or artist managers, and Jasper may have a comment on this. And of course, we have the new EU entry-exit system and European Travel Information and Authorization System, ETIAS, to look forward to. One thing we've been lucky with so far with trips to France, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands and Luxembourg is that we've not required visas or work permits. Spain, however, will and does require UK artists and orchestras to obtain visas for short-term work, which I'll come back to in a moment. The other issues we're facing are logistical, around instruments and trucking. Obtaining carnets for equipment travelling as cargo by truck for all EU tours, and we've also implemented in the LSO a no CITES policy. We still create instruments to prove if asked, instrument passports to prove if asked that an instrument does not contain any endangered materials and is allowed to freely move without a special CITES permit. And then there's our truck, Lenny. One of the surprises, and I say surprise because we knew most of these issues were coming, but we didn't know this one until we read it in the UK-EU Trade Cooperation Agreement on about the 2nd of January. The surprise was that UK orchestras transporting instruments by truck were now restricted to truck movement and cabotage rules to a maximum of 3 journeys within the EU before the truck has to go home. So either one cabotage move within a country or one cross-border, for example, Paris, Lille, Luxembourg, or 2 cross-border moves, for example, Paris, Luxembourg, Brussels. Now, I remember a trip to Spain a few years ago where we went to Barcelona, Madrid, and Oviedo. That great tour would now be impossible with our truck. So this new rule was difficult or impossible with our original touring schedules, but it actually clearly goes against our ambition to do fewer but longer European tours by road and rail. And it means we've had to spend thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds, on hiring EU trucks for recent tours, whilst Lenny was left behind at home. We are speaking with our government about this issue, but we also need to work with you and our partners across the EU to lobby for a change in this rule for the benefit of the whole cultural sector, not just orchestras, but all of the creative industries. As an important touring destination for UK orchestras and ensembles and artists, we realised that we were going to face a particular challenge in Spain where we have to obtain visas to allow us to undertake short-term work, up to 5 consecutive days or 20 performance days within a 6-month period. So to obtain a visa in Spain, a musician now needs to complete an application form, provide a letter of invitation from the Spanish promoter, a no objection letter, which for freelance musicians will require them to prove self-employed status and payment of taxes, requiring a letter from an accountant, which many musicians don't actually have, detailed financial records, proof of funds, return travel, accommodation and travel insurance for the trip, and then attend an in-person interview, submit their passport for anything from 15 to 45 days, and pay £112 fee per person. This is all incredibly time-consuming and burdensome on both the UK and the Spanish sides, so we hope that we can work with you, your Culture Ministry and the government to obtain a cultural exemption that doesn't require any additional paperwork, or maybe a simplified process just requiring a letter of invitation. All of this would benefit not only us as the touring ensemble, but Spanish promoters and performing groups, and ultimately help secure the future of cultural exchange between the UK and Spain. On sustainability, we are working to make our touring more comfortable and manageable for players and staff, and environmentally friendly. Now, as the world watches on at the negotiations taking place at COP26 in Glasgow, it is clear that we all have a responsibility to face up to these huge challenges. We are realistic that the transition to a new touring model and a new business model will take a number of years, but we've already made good progress on implementing this approach from 2023 onwards, as well as adjusting some of our touring plans in September, for example, to take a 5-day and a 3-day trip and combine it into an 8-day trip, halving the number of flights we needed. As well as reducing our carbon footprint, we are therefore also able to reduce overall the time spent away from home, undertaking arduous travel, and make tours more sustainable for all people involved as well. We're currently preparing a detailed environmental action plan across the organisation and all areas of our work, and trialling some other changes. For example, we've planned for 3 or 4 trips in the next 12 months to take slower trains, often combined with coaches, back from tour, back to London, arriving maybe in the mid-afternoon, rather than rushing back to London in time for lunch on an early morning short-haul flight. We must look at every aspect of our organisation, our work in London, how we and our audiences travel, how we move equipment around the world, but also between the Barbican and LSO St Luke's, a 5-minute walk. And all our planning and creativity needs to be measured against this environmental impact. One other area we're looking at, which again Jasper may have a view on, is artist travel. We're working to try and have artists with us in London for longer residencies rather than short one-off visits. A very successful example of this is our recent artist portrait series with viola player Antoine Tamastite. Originally planned across 3 months across the season, the pandemic disruption gave us the chance to replan this into a month residency with us, where he performed 3 concertos in 5 UK performances with the orchestra, with 3 different conductors, all recorded for broadcast, as well as joining us on a Switzerland tour and performing 4 chamber concerts, all broadcast on BBC Radio 3. This was hugely satisfying artistically for us and for Antoine and the audiences, much more successful than if it had been spread out across a season, and of course more environmentally friendly. I want to return, however, to some of the work we've been doing with the potential of the hybrid digital live model. As I mentioned, our partnerships and residencies have always been important to us. Over this time, they showed new potential. Back to Aix-en-Provence, after that initial broadcast concert in 2020, it's no accident that our first trip since the pandemic began was to Aix in July 2021, where we not only performed 2 operas and concerts, but also undertook our annual coaching with the Mediterranean Youth Orchestra and worked with Vialma to present concerts online alongside our live performances. Our Japan 2020 tour was cancelled, but we worked with our agent Kajimoto and sponsor TDK to broadcast Bartók's Duke's Bluebeard's Castle, which was on the original tour programme, from LSO St Luke's. Alongside this, we continued digital discovery work with young musicians and others in Japan, which continues now and over the next years as we prepare another special broadcast this winter and our return to Japan in 2022. After a brilliant Latin American tour in 2019, our partners in Chile, Corpartes, set up a digital platform for Spanish-speaking communities there, licensing LSO concert broadcasts, player-created coffee sessions, and our LSO Play Discovery platform, with everything translated into Spanish. From this, we worked with the British Council in Japan to have LSO Play translated into Japanese. And we're now also looking at China and Chinese partners for this as well. We have a partnership with the Music Academy of the West in California, which includes coaching their fellows each summer, hosting fellows in London to experience life in the LSO, and performing in Santa Barbara with the full orchestra, side by side with their fellows in 2019, and hopefully again in March 2022. When the pandemic hit, the Music Academy moved their entire summer 2020 academy and festival online, and we provided online coaching, masterclasses, and digital performances, which we did that again in summer 2021 when they returned in person and we weren't able to travel to California. We did it online from home. Another residency is in Dortmund. We've developed an in-depth residency with 3 concerts a year. But crucially, alongside these concerts, we're working with them to train creative workshop leaders, build their community music program, and performing in small groups at settings such as care homes, cafes, and for families. One of the new UK residencies is in Bristol. We performed a concert which was also live streamed to care homes across the UK, showing the power of music, partnership and collaboration around the live digital hybrid model. Now, these are examples of our work and our thinking going forward, how we can be a true 21st century orchestra, an ensemble of and for our communities, wherever they may be, where education, small group, large orchestra activity, composers and creativity, both live and online, combine to create deep-rooted and long-lasting impact. We have a lot of work to do, and the opportunities are exciting, but the challenges are real. So we need to continue to discuss and share, working together across all areas of our industry. Nothing can be taken for granted about the future, and we will need to work harder and smarter than ever to keep our orchestras strong, vibrant and relevant. I want to end with a news clip about our Bristol concert being live streamed to care homes.
A concert by the London Symphony Orchestra has been live streamed tonight, free of charge, into hundreds of care homes across the UK to thank staff and residents for their resilience during the pandemic. The special performance was staged by the Bristol Beacon Project and conducted by Sir Simon Rattle. John Kay has this report.
No bingo tonight. Instead, residents at Quarry House are waiting for a live performance by one of the best orchestras in the world.
It's the first time we've had something like this for a long time. So yes, looking forward to it.
We were at the final rehearsal this afternoon. The London Symphony Orchestra are used to big audiences, but tonight every care home in the UK is invited.
I always believed that music was one of the great healing arts. And it's a way of reconnecting with people and also saying thank you to all the people who've worked, often for very little thanks, in the last year and a half. And also just to kind of spread some of what we do in the hope that it'll make people feel better. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Can't put into words really what it means. I didn't realise it was going to be so emotional. Things are still not completely right, but hope for the future.
I think it's incredible and a wonderful picture as well. You know, you feel as if you could be there.
It was organised by the Bristol Beacon Project, but watched in care homes from Ayrshire to Surrey.
It's been so stressful and we've had a lot of isolation in the homes, but it's all coming back and it feels great to bring music and joy back into the homes again.
After nearly 2 years of pain, 2 hours of joy. John Kay, BBC News, Bristol.
Wonderful to see. That's it now on BBC.
So thank you very much, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with you and our other panellists.